Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of GnWC Weekly. I'm the Duke, and I'm joined by my good buddy.
I I don't know.
That really? Hello, everyone, and welcome to
Hold on
another
a second.
edition
I got
of
things
GnWC
popping up in the
Weekly. I'm the
background.
Duke, and I'm joined.
Yeah, I Twitch. Twitch likes to do this new thing. That's what confused me. I don't have a name, but Twitch likes to confuse me. I'm Todd Phillips, by the way. The Twitch likes to confuse me because when you
Todd or Tim?
what's Tim? Sorry.
Tim. Yep.
When you refresh the dashboard, it seems to want to think that you want to hear yourself live for some reason. And then with the delay of talking, and then that plays in the background, it's like, well, why did you create this situation where you're making everybody's audio loop into their own broadcast? Like, why does it not start muted like it used to?
Wait, now, Tim or Felipe?
Felipe. I don't know what his online or his AshleyMadison.com pseudonym is, but it's not going to work here anymore after this week. That's for sure.
Well, that's Angry Larry. I'm the Duke, and we're going to get to some wrestling pretty quick because we're both pretty exhausted. I've had a long week. I've been out of town. I missed a lot of wrestling, so this is kind of going to be story time with Larry, and I'm going to ask a few questions along the way, and Larry will fill in the blanks. Tell me how good this week of wrestling was, because I've heard a lot of good things. So, yeah, I guess, do we want to do any news and notes? I mean, if anyone watched wrestling this week, they saw that we lost some people from wrestling fandom this week.
Yeah, we covered that last week, actually.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Because we're late. So
yeah, that was the last week thing. But yeah, we'll
sort of
incorporate some news and notes within the segments as they become relevant. I mean,
okay.
Certainly it was a pretty good week of wrestling for all things considered. If you look at the cards themselves, especially like Raw, you're kind of like ho-hum, what, we got Charlotte and Sasha again,
yeah,
Sami
right.
Zayn and Kevin Owens again,
right?
Like what's exactly going on here? What's just not going on? What are they not understanding? Why are we seeing all this stuff over and over and over again? Well, I mean, the Kevin Owens Sami Zayn match, especially with Kevin Owens' promo to start the show, was really good. And for somebody who
sitting in a spotlight,
camera
finally,
framed,
the spotlight is where it belongs.
Camera framed right on his face, like
yeah.
Not at his whole body, just like right serious time. Here it is. We're zoomed in right on his face. And he just shoots on Goldberg, and then basically says, and as far as Chris Jericho is concerned, and then just walks out of the ring and doesn't even address him.
Ugh. See, that was going to be my first question. So we got some epic fallout and follow up to the Chris Jericho Kevin Owens story, right? No.
No. Just as we desired it.
That doesn't mean that doesn't mean it had to happen, but
no.
Yeah.
Well, it did happen in the form of Kevin Owens just not even caring to address it.
Being a total dick about it.
And they led up to it with the whole highlight from last week's Festival of Friendship, and then the only thing he does is address Goldberg, and then just says, and regarding Chris Jericho, and just leaves the ring. So it was perfectly done. Kevin Owens versus Sami Zayn. Well, you kind of had to rehash that. Well, this is his former friend angle, because Jericho's his former friend. And Kevin Owens just annihilated Sami Zayn. It wasn't a 50-50 match. It wasn't a,
but Samoa Joe was involved beforehand, though, right? Samoa Joe
ambushed Sami Zayn.
Yeah.
Beforehand.
Yeah. Didn't that happen?
I don't know. Yeah, I guess it did.
Yeah.
I joined that match in progress.
Yeah, and then Sami.
They didn't. I guess they didn't really play that up during the match.
Yeah, and then Sami chose to compete anyway.
Well, of course, Sami.
Yeah, because he's Sami Zayn. and Owens was unrelenting in his offense.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, I guess they told two stories at once. What lengths Kevin Owens is going through, like, he doesn't care about former friends, or whatever. And how more aggressive he's getting rather than being a clown. or
Sure.
sideshow, side act, comedy act, whatever. And
This is
Sami
the
Zayn doing the never give up, adversity through all stuff.
Like I said, like I belabored last week, this is the Kevin Owens you love to hate, and it's glorious, fantastic. Yep. And I'm totally, I'm totally, botching the fact that you're killing me. No, I'm totally botching the fact that I said glorious, and I should only say that about Bobby Roode, of course. But anyway, I digress.
They also did the angle with Bayley being brought out to the ring with Stephanie McMahon, and I gave you that 2% prediction that Stephanie McMahon was going to make Bayley or take the title away from Bayley last week, and I was foaming at the mouth because I'm like, holy crap, I'm right. Like, they're really going to do this. They're going to give the title back to Charlotte, and or just put it on the line at Fastlane, or suspend it until WrestleMania, whatever they're going to do. I'm like, this is gonna lead somewhere. I'm like, this is good. And then the boss tells her to give up the title. The boss being Stephanie McMahon, not Sasha Banks, tells her to give up the title. The other boss tells her no, and Bayley doesn't. So it's a great work environment when the boss tells you to do something, and then you can just say, no, I'm just going to keep the title. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It makes total sense in the corporate world.
She said she kind of tried to guilt her into giving it up, right? And Bayley said, no, I'm not going to.
More or less.
For the third time. Yeah.
More or less, but
but I get what you're saying, and that's hilarious.
I have reason to believe that I was going to be right, except for a situation that happened on the other show that needed to be done, and they weren't going to do it 2 days in a row.
Right.
So I'm really gonna I'm still hanging my I'm putting this one on the board for a victory for me, because I really do believe it was happening.
Because it probably would have happened.
Yeah, I really believe the audible was made because of the Naomi situation that we'll cover in a second. But let me get to the most shocking thing about Raw in general this week was that Braun Strowman versus Big Show match. I'm not going to give it a 5-star moniker or compare it to like other matches or whatever. Both these guys delivered. And for what you could say, like, let's say like a month ago, I told you Braun Strowman was going to fight Big Show, or 3 months ago, or at the draft. Like, we'd all grown. Be like, oh, is this needing to happen? We have a big guy against a big guy. Like, we see this all the time in the WWE. It's boring, it's sloppy. They're only going to put one big guy over the other just to make him a monster until he gets defeated one time, and then he becomes, beatable every single week. But both guys delivered in a huge way in this match, and it really, Braun Strowman has been showing himself the last couple weeks, if not just like the whole month, as a legitimate wrestler, a powerhouse, not just a big man, not just a body. But then the Big Show gets involved in this match and works with Braun Strowman in such a way that, like, I'm excited to see the Big Show again because of it. Just athletic, showing athleticism, just powerful, just being able to take moves and dish them out, and that's both of them. Friggin' Braun Strowman nipped up.
Right,
dude. He just.
I heard them. I heard them talk. They talked about. What was it? It was on. I think it was on the Talking Shop podcast on Talk is Jericho, because he has a rotating fourth now. It's Jericho, Gallows, Anderson, and then they'll have a fourth, and they always do it when they're overseas. And so they did it from they talked about like the nip up challenge that he had one night at a house show where somebody said something that, just people just messing around or whatever, and Cena said, oh, well, Strowman could do a nip up. Anybody can do a nip up. And people were like, no, not Strowman. And he's like, well, yeah, I can. And it became like major league betting odds that he could or couldn't do it, and people put all kinds of money on whether he could nip up or not, and he didn't quite make it. He got to like he kind of got up and couldn't get his weight forward or whatever,
Right.
and so I guess he's still been practicing.
I mean,
It's pretty great that they actually incorporated it into a big man match, though. That's funny. That's
yeah,
funny.
it was really good. And if this was a condensed, like if you were able to watch a condensed hour edition of Raw anywhere, like on Hulu, I think they do a 90-minute
Sure.
Raw, or I used to
Right.
Saturday morning shows used to condense it to an hour.
Right.
This would be actually one of the better ones to watch because it would probably, I wouldn't say it would probably filter out all the junk you wouldn't want to watch. It would probably include that because it's WWE.
Sure.
But there was a lot of good stuff in this show to make it a nice, solid like show of the year. If it was condensed, if it was just if certain segments were taken out. But we you talk about Raw being moments all the time, but these moments in this Raw were pretty good, and I would definitely recommend watching it, even though you haven't yet.
Yeah, they're moments, but they all fit the overall narrative for the characters involved. I mean, Braun Strowman, he's running the gauntlet, and then on top of it, he's always getting the better of Roman Reigns in the process,
Which doesn't make sense.
Which is sort of that's sort of a rite of passage too for him.
Right, but here's what doesn't make sense about that match. After the match, Roman Reigns does a run-in. It's like, it's still all about Roman Reigns. The good guy has to run in because it's Roman Reigns, and we need Roman Reigns to beat this guy down. And
yeah, but then Braun stood tall, right? When it was all said and done.
When it was all said and done, yeah, he stood tall, but
Roman
looked strong. So, of course, that had to happen.
But
I
know, yeah.
It couldn't
weird,
be a total beatdown. It had to be
kind of
50-50.
I feel like they're kind of using him still like they did with the Royal Rumble. They're putting him out there to get other people over. And that's
we'll see
really
if that's what happens at Fastlane, and I'm still 50-50 on the match. If that's what happens on Fastlane, then yeah, okay, But if it doesn't happen on Fastlane,
but if all of this is just to have more odds for him to overcome, then I don't see that going.
Roman Reigns fan or not, they need Braun Strowman over Roman Reigns because they need somebody else in the bigger picture.
True.
They just need more people in that elaborate bubble of who can possibly be Universal Champion. Everyone's going to be like, oh, well, Finn's back next week or whatever. It's like, well, I mean, I'm sorry. I don't think Finn Balor sells out Madison Square Garden. Like, I'm not saying Braun Strowman sells out Madison Square Garden either, but there's only a few people that sell at Madison Square Garden. So, like, therefore, you need more people in the mix so that one day they can sell out Madison Square Garden. When other guys aren't there or injured or not working anymore, leave the company, retire. You need more guys in that brass ring bubble.
Sure.
So that, you can do stuff like this. I mean, listen, Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels were never in that bubble until they were. And then they earned their spot, and then they were selling out arenas and stuff like that. Wrestling hasn't changed in that aspect, in that business aspect. The only thing that has changed is sometimes they're just laser focused on a few people and outside part-timers. And they're not giving other people a chance. But we argue this point all the time, Duke, where like people always say blah blah blah, same old WWE, new people never get over. But Finn Balor and Kevin Owens are your only Universal Champions. Like, who would have thought that would have ever happened? And AJ Styles was the SmackDown champion, and now it's Bray Wyatt.
For quite a while, yeah.
So I mean, like, things do happen. It's just like an exclusive club to get there at times, and I think that they should just do better getting more people into that club, win or lose. Sami Zayn, maybe he's not a heavyweight champion, but could he not have like a 2-month feud with somebody for the title down the line? I think it should happen. Again, to I guess to complement this point, to an accessory to my point, is your minor titles are on Chris Jericho and Dean Ambrose. and they're like multi-time champions. Or I guess
Yeah.
Dean Ambrose only really won it once, but you know what I mean? It's like, well, these
Sure.
titles are better served on the Rusevs, the Big Cass, or
the mid to upper mid card guys.
or even with a lower guy to have the chance, because besides Kalisto,
Sure.
when was the last time somebody got like one of those upset victories in like that lower card area? You might have to go back to Luke Harper winning the IC title for like, because even Ryback winning it, he was kind of like headlining pay-per-views against.
I would say Zack Ryder would be your Zack Ryder.
Well,
getting
okay, yeah, that was
title.
one day, so I forgot about it. But
yeah,
Zack Ryder.
No, I mean that's valid criticism.
but he won it in like the grandest of all stages. You know what I mean? So that like
True
was
enough.
perfect.
Yeah, true
But then he gave it right back to an A-lister. You know, literally.
Yep.
So that's that. But I would absolutely, when you can get a chance to watch Raw, you know this, you're gonna know the segments to fast forward. Anything that
right.
anything with a tag team or a cruiserweight involved,
Right.
You can get rid of, and then
Because
it's
unfortunately that stuff still doesn't matter.
and it's dealer's choice on if you want to watch Sasha and Charlotte
Sure.
or whatever. But on SmackDown though, things happened again, and we alluded to it a little bit beforehand, a little spoiler in advance on the tapings. Naomi was forced to relinquish her title. We talked about this in the past. She's one of the ones that just doesn't seem to stay healthy. And while the injury is pretty much undisclosed, because I can't even find a good report on what's wrong with her, other than maybe it's a knee problem she suffered at the house show after the pay-per-view, or like during like a particular move in the pay-per-view. Everything conflicts from
speaking of conflict, what's weird is that next day when there was rumors of the injury or whatever from the house show, she said on Twitter that she would be fine.
Yeah.
That she was cleared.
Well, they thought she was going to be fine for that night
that's
as well.
interesting. Yeah, that's interesting.
And then when she wasn't fine for that night, they made the audible to just relinquish the title. Shockingly, gave it back. Well, they didn't give it back, but Alexa Bliss beat Becky Lynch to win it back.
Right.
Clean. I guess mostly.
Sort of,
but clean. No outside interference or like foreign objects. I guess she did a little bit of dirty tactics within the match, but and then Mickie James came.
No luchadora this time.
No luchadora. No table spot. She actually got the victory, and won. So your first 2-time SmackDown champion in this era is Alexa Bliss.
Yeah.
So that's pretty cool for her.
That is wild.
American Alpha. I'm sorry.
Hang on. Sorry to rub it in a little bit, but that does a lot to say. Nah, Larry, you were wrong.
I was. No, I absolutely was, and I apologize for it.
And I don't mean that. And no, I don't mean that in a bad way.
Yeah.
I just mean, wow. I mean that something. She's impressed somebody for sure.
Well, let me say this. Let me say this just to justify my statements of earlier, saying she'd never be a champion on the main roster is what I said.
Right.
Alexa Bliss, from the point coming out of NXT, was never going to be a main roster person. But she adapted and grew in her role to be somebody.
Quickly.
Yeah,
Very
to be somebody
quickly.
in a shocking way for me, because I thought she was who she was. And I thought that being on the main roster, like I always think that somebody coming to the main roster always waters them down. And if not, they're not a huge superstar oozing with machismo or whatever, charisma. I feel like, well, then they're just going to be a shell of what I saw them at in developmental or on the indies or wherever.
Which has happened a lot.
And not to say that it always happens. And this is the case where it didn't happen. In fact, it went opposite. And I think like Carmella is the perfect textbook example of the I guess the outcome I was expecting. Just
which is weird, because it looked like there was a glimmer there of something happening, and I don't know what it was, but someone said, "Nah, no."
And she's
you're
not even on the
getting
roster
ball.
in terms of having matches on TV anymore. She's just in a
Sure.
comedy, whatever that they're going to parlay this into, maybe like something in the future. But it's just kind of stagnant right now because I don't feel like they know what that future is.
Right.
Um,
Right.
So Natalya beat Nikki in a Falls Count Anywhere match, and the moral of this story was that
Stuff happened.
It's the road to WrestleMania, and
Yeah.
they planted the seed with Maurice on fast Elimination Chamber, I believe it was, with the powder stuff. Was that Elimination Chamber or was that SmackDown?
Yeah, that was after Elimination Chamber.
Yeah,
that was that backstage segment. Yep.
Yeah. So and then with the whole happenings of the Battle Royal where The Miz got eliminated and then eliminated John Cena when he wasn't even in the match, just put 2 and 2 together, literally. And
Sure.
We're in the makings for a mixed tag team match of Nikki Bella and John Cena versus Maurice and The Miz.
Interesting.
Something that was leaked a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And
I don't hate that though.
I here's why I do.
Well, you say why you do, and I'll tell you why I don't.
Well, here's why I do, and here's why it's going to happen anyway. The why it's going to happen anyway is because it's Nikki Bella's last WrestleMania, probably, before she becomes a part-timer or rarely wrestles or whatever. And, just they want something special. Cena wants something special. And Cena and Nikki tagging up to win at WrestleMania will be that moment that they, defines their careers and relationship. Why I don't like it is I think because John Cena and The Miz could be useful elsewhere on the card to have a better match than a mixed tag team match that relatively, women have to fight women, men have to fight men. Not that I want to see one slug the other, but, it's just mixed tag team matches are not like normally good matches, and
No,
maybe...
I get what you're saying. Here's what I like about it is a lot of people thought, well, Nikki's, they're obviously going to find some way to get Nikki into the title picture. And they haven't done that. And I think that maybe she's part of that decision because she's just like, no, let the new girls do it. It's fine.
No, she's in incredible pain and she's retiring.
Oh, well, there's that too.
So this is her swan song.
So she has been hurting herself with all this crazy junk she's done. So
well, I mean, listen, you have a neck injury and you're going to go in there and do all these Falls Count Anywhere in hard no DQ matches. Like that's, I don't know where.
And you take shoulder and neck bumps constantly. That's what I've hated.
And I've told this story before about Luna Vachon and her like post WWE career. Like her neck was messed up, so the word is out there like you don't work the neck, don't work the neck, don't work the neck. Like how is somebody who's worth like millions of dollars like Nikki Bella is in and out of the ring have that neck problem and they still put her in situations or she's still calling spots that have to do with the neck? Like why could it not be safer? Which area is this falling flat on? I can't see it being like creative is like you have to take these spots and Nikki's dead against it. And I can't see creative being dead against it. Nikki's insistent on it. I just don't understand where the decision was, like, not to have, I guess it's an obvious thing. Like, she has neck problems, so working in the neck is logical to the story. But, like, when you're dealing with somebody's, like, health and such, like, somebody should have made a stand somewhere and said it's in best interest, like, work the leg for the match. Create a fake leg injury for her at one point. You do it for everybody else, and have the opponent work the leg and stay away from the neck. And maybe there won't be pain or, soreness, and maybe there'll be more longevity of the career. But I believe the fact of the matter is, like, the pain is there and consistent enough to be like, well, I have to protect my other interests, and I might go to that part-time role, and WrestleMania might be it for a while. And then down the line, like, just doing a here and there kind of thing. Couple months on, couple months off, or whatever it is. But
well, I like it because and it's no hate for Nikki, but it's allowed them to do more with the newer women that she's not in a title picture. So I like that. And, you know, and I've become a fan. I say this all the time. I've become a fan of Nikki Bella, but I didn't think so soon after her injury she needed to be back in a title picture. And obviously she really didn't. If, you know, with like you're saying, she's taking all these bumps that don't make a lot of sense for someone with her type of injury. And a lot of people are saying that. We're not the only ones noticing. So, and obviously her body is noticing. So that sucks. But from a what I watch on TV standpoint, I appreciate that she's not going into a title match for WrestleMania. On the other hand, you're right about Miz and Cena being in maybe something a little more high profile, but I suspect the lead up to it and everything like that will be good enough that it'll still feel really special, and they'll make it really special. So Maurice actually getting back in the ring,
I should be excited about that, but I can't get away from
that's really interesting to me after all these years. So
I should get excited about that, but fact of the matter is,
Larry, get excited.
So with Total Divas, there needs to be prominent places for these women on TV, because women on the women on SmackDown, with the exception of the championship, are booked for Total Divas, rather than like their booking dictates Total Divas. Like I don't know how to explain that, but you know,
I get what you're saying.
Yeah, Natalya, Nikki, and like Naomi had her just a run just now, but Total Divas is in that hiatus. And then you look and, like, you know, the people who are not in I expect Carmella to be in Total Divas next season. Like,
well, I mean, even a lot of her feud with Nikki was connected to Total Divas as well. So, I mean, she even did the Total Divas parody spot.
Mm-hmm.
So
the Battle Royal was pretty good.
Yeah,
with the cliffhanger ending. So that's
interesting conclusion.
So that's the second week in a row we have who's actually going to wrestle Randy Orton for the title. So this week we have AJ Styles versus Luke Harper. Those two that ended the Battle Royal in a draw, both hitting the floor at the same time, which they can't show the replay of because I think Harper.
It didn't really happen.
Somebody might have hit first, and I don't remember who it was, but clearly I remember seeing somebody hitting first. So it begs the question whether it's going to be Bray Wyatt versus Luke Harper at WrestleMania, Bray Wyatt versus AJ Styles at WrestleMania, or like here's the scenario that I think I mentioned last week, was that no matter who it is, I think Randy Orton's going to be threatened enough that Bray's going to lose his title to then interject himself in the match and say like, hey, wait a second, I said I wasn't going to fight him one-on-one, or wasn't going to fight him. You know, we never said anything about, you know, anybody else being added in the match that I wouldn't be included anyway. So it could be Bray versus Harper versus Wyatt for the title. They're kind of mixing in a little bit of Randy Orton giving Wyatt or the title glares here and there. So they're setting that seed, of course, because they always have to do something like that. So it could be a Wyatt family triple threat for the title.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
That would probably be the only scenario, because why would it be AJ Styles versus Bray Wyatt, and then Randy Orton versus like Luke Harper would be the other match? Why would you have Randy Orton win the Royal Rumble if all you were going to do was put over the fact that Randy Orton is loyal to Bray Wyatt?
Sure.
I mean, I guess it says a lot if Randy Orton's not going to cash in the opportunity for the title to pledge his allegiance to Wyatt. But the story you've told on TV so far has been anything but like Orton's willing to go to any length for Bray Wyatt, except for the fact that he's just not going to wrestle.
Yeah, I know. It's weird what they're setting up, and it's weird in a sort of good way, because it's like I don't fully know where it's going, and I don't know. I don't know. I
don't know if that match happens, I don't know who's going to win the title. But how amazing would it be if Luke Harper won the title?
Yeah, and I mean they aren't being shy about giving him some serious spotlight right now. So who knows? Maybe that's where we're going. Maybe.
Maybe it's like the anything can happen at WrestleMania kind of moment for this year is Luke Harper winning the title. AJ Styles, I don't think he's winning that match next week. I just feel like, and I've always locked AJ Styles in to be in that Intercontinental Championship match, ladder match. So, where it's like Dolph Ziggler, Apollo Crews, Kalisto, AJ Styles, Dean Ambrose, Baron Corbin kind of stuff for the title. You know what I mean? So it should be it should be something like that. But then, like, maybe if you want to make it an 8-person match, maybe even just throw in Mojo Rawley and, like, I don't know, Tyler Breeze. So, something like that. But then you said Dean Ambrose and Baron Corbin are having their thing, so maybe it's maybe they're just gonna have their one-off IC match, and then everybody else is just gonna be in a filler match. I don't know exactly what that filler match, the purpose of that match would be. So, we'll see. I gotta check the SmackDown roster for something like that. Hard to believe that Baron Corbin and Dean Ambrose would be setting all this stuff up just to be in a multi-person match, especially when there's no more SmackDown pay-per-views on the line. But between now and WrestleMania, but there's probably going to be way too many TV shows in between for these stories to be fixed. Something could happen where they could have their match on a SmackDown, and then after that, like, have one of those segments in the ring where just multiple people come out and lay claim, like, blah blah blah, I've been in the shadows forever, I deserve my chance, and then you're setting up a multi-man match. But this is something I do every WrestleMania. I set up a situation where, in my mind, every match is a multi-person match because it's the grandest stage of them all, and you're trying to incorporate everybody. Like, the SmackDown Tag Titles match is probably going to be like, it's probably American Alpha versus the Usos, and it's probably going to be on the pre-show. But, like, I could just totally see that match being like a Four Corners tag team match as well. With the Ascension and with, man, I don't even know who else, Rhino and Slater. And then every other tag team on SmackDown be included in the Andre the Giant Battle Royal if they do it again this year. I see the women's title being a woman match. Alexa Bliss, Becky Lynch, Mickie James, and I don't even know, Natalya. At this point, unless Carmella gets involved, it can be five-way. You can put Carmella. You can put everyone in there except for Nikki Bella and Naomi if she's hurt. So that's a thing there, and it's a Continental title match. Like I said, it's the ladder match, and then the championship match. We already have like Orton versus Wyatt versus Harper, so it's pretty weird how that happens. On the Raw side, I guess we're gonna have Kevin Owens versus Chris Jericho, Goldberg versus Lesnar. I guess those are your singles matches, and like the combined pay-per-views always favor Raw over SmackDown. Raw always gets the marquee matches. You know what I mean, Duke?
Yep.
And SmackDown always gets.
We've even talked about that before.
Yeah, and SmackDown always gets the junk thrown out there for the pre-show, or just like any form of like everybody on the roster gets involved in this match kind of deal. So that's my take on like the multi-person matches for WrestleMania. Raw is going to get like a couple marquee one-on-ones, and then like SmackDown's going to get all the like multi-person matches that are going to litter the lower part of the card.
Which you've actually, like, since shortly after the draft, you've been calling that there would be a lot of multi-man matches at.
Oh, last year I think I was predicting them for WrestleMania.
Yeah.
I just when I hear WrestleMania, and I know you had audio problems there, and I was filibustering while you were fixing them. When I was doing the Raw, like the WrestleMania like predictions, I can't see anything but multi-person matches because of how many people you have to get on the card, and just the stuff they do to lead up to it. But whatever the case with that. Let's talk about NXT.
Okay.
Because if we're talking about Raw and SmackDown being pretty good, NXT was pretty good this week as well. And I'm going to have the same gripe I had last week about Pete Dunne versus Mandrews. In the fact that It was a great match, it was a good match, and it's good to see both of them. It's just out of place, and it took away from my NXT. We had 2 matches on the card. Well, 3 if you include the Pete Dunne versus Mandrews match. Normally we get like 4. It took away from, not in the sense that I feel like the cruiserweights take away from Raw, but in a sense like this is my hour of TV, man. This is what I'm looking forward to, and I like Pete Dunne and I like Mark Andrews. I do. It's just an out of place match for them. They might as well just show a rerun of, Eli Drake versus whoever the bodybuilder, the Jesse Goddard from TNA, like right in the middle of my program. There was no continuity. If something happened with Regal during that match and Pete Dunne, if Pete Dunne like healed out on Mark Andrews and just beat the snot out of him, and you had to include Regal in some sort of way, like it would have justified it. If Tyler Bate had to make the save, or something. If you had a way to prolong that match as just not an isolated match, but incorporate a story into it that may unfold on NXT TV, like I would get behind that. But other than that, it was just a really good match that took time away from other NXT stars to maybe make a place for themselves. And certainly if you're going to do a lot of the tapings at once, Duke, like a match like this inserted in is better for the performers so they don't have to work multiple segments. But again, It just comes across as like, it's like 20 minutes of my TV show that wasn't available for my TV show. It's something that I like.
Right. Yeah.
But again, nothing to do with the competitors, nothing to do with the match. Just like last week, I loved it. I just, it wasn't NXT, and that's what I was looking for in that time slot. I'm actually really shocked that Peyton Royce won that triple threat match.
Yeah, that was super. That was one of the things that I had seen, after not having time to actually watch the show. I was just like, wow, that was not the expected outcome for me. So I really expected this to be Ember Moon's move to the top pretty quickly. But yeah, Peyton Royce, that's very interesting.
And then I realized why it happened. Because we have another set of tapings before WrestleMania. Actually, 2 set of tapings, I believe, before WrestleMania. So we're going to get the Asuka Peyton Royce match on TV. And then whatever the TakeOver Orlando is going to be called, you're going to get the Ember Moon Asuka match on that card. Because they've already done the Peyton Royce blow-off for the title. And Asuka wins.
Good point. Yeah, the timing of it all.
Yeah, I don't know who wrestled, because they did a taping that same day. They did the taping at Central Florida for the next couple TV shows. So I don't know who was on the card or if they even did that match at that taping. But I believe there's one more. Full Sail taping before now and then. That if it didn't happen at the Central Florida taping, it can possibly happen at that Full Sail taping. And then the Ember Moon stuff can progress from there. But again, listen. Nikki Cross is still calling out Asuka, so there's still a chance that they can do another multi-person shenanigans, because every match has to involve multiple people. And there you go. But much in the way that I feel that Peyton Royce and Asuka is going to take place on free TV or network TV, I feel the same is going to happen with Bobby Roode and Cassius Ohno. Like, that's not going to be your TakeOver Orlando match.
Right.
That's going to be the stopgap in between.
Sure.
And how awesome was it?
Just to get Ono kind of back in the mix of everything.
Yeah, because as I watched this, Bobby Roode's beating up No Way Jose after the match, and I'm like, all right, well, here comes Shinsuke, to save the day, and then we're going to revisit this rivalry, blah, 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 and we're going to have another match.
Sure.
That typical wrestling, typical ways of wrestling. Yeah. And then Ono hits the ring, and I'm like, wow. I'm like,
didn't see that coming.
You just blasted this guy right to the top at the right moment, because the crowd was going to get into the welcome back and just like cheer him, and I think cheer him in a way that because it's him, because of the type of guy he is outside of the ring. Like, one of the nicest guys I've ever personally met. I think I've told you this story before. Just knew my name, like, he just knows your name, talks to you like a person, like, not trying to sell you like merchandise and stuff like that. It was very cool.
Sure.
But a hard worker and respected all over the world for his wrestling stuff, from the boys in the locker room to the fans alike. But also for not being Shinsuke Nakamura coming out for that little bit of a surprise that it's him.
Yeah, doing something a little different.
Yep. Doing something a little different. They would have blown the roof off if Nakamura came out, but because
they've inserted him in the story along the way here and there. You know, he was the guy that sort of was like looking after Nakamura and everything like that. So yeah,
without them even announcing he was back, he was just there.
Sure,
and he was,
sure, right.
Most people might have seen him and just been like, all right, like, who the hell was that guy? Was he like a trainer? Was he a doctor? Or not even thought of it. But if you were a fan of NXT and you knew who Cassius Ohno was from the time he was there, you see him, because you wouldn't know who Cassius Ohno, Chris Hero was unless you were like a Ring of Honor fan back in the 2000s. Or saw NXT beforehand. If you're just a straight up I watch wrestling on TV fan, you wouldn't have saw him in TNA. You wouldn't have saw him in Ring of Honor. You wouldn't have saw him in early Ring of Honor TV shows may have had him. So I correct myself there. But you wouldn't have, like any present day TV show company on TV now, you wouldn't know who he was. So they just like kind of put him there. And then it was only last week, I think, that they actually put out a promo for him. And then they put out a promo this week, and then, like, shockingly, he just shows up this week. Normally that doesn't happen. Normally it's like debuts next week or whatever the case may be. Or in Emma's situation, debuts sometime, then never comes back on TV again after the re-debut. But
very rarely is it debuts. Well now.
Debuts now. Even when Elias Sampson came back, it's just like he returns next week.
Yeah.
So, like, all right, well, it's next week, the Wyatt family is here next week. Brodus Clay next week. It's like, all right, well, now we know when these guys are debuting. Like, Cassius Ohno is just like, all right, here's another promo for Ohno. All right, so we're going to, like Sanity and like everyone before, we're going to see these things for 6 weeks before you come. Nope, he's out tonight. And I think it was very good. I thought his delivery on the microphone was awesome. And I thought the whole way him and Rude went at it was really good. In fact, I had my sister was here. My sister is older than me. Never watches wrestling. Actually, I have a funny story revolving that. I'll tell you when we're done here.
Okay.
No one's going to care about that story. You probably won't either, but I'll tell it anyway. But never watches wrestling. But we had it on, and then when the and basically was talking through it, talking to my mother and stuff like that. But when the Rude No Way Jose match was interested in the Rude No Way Jose match because of how both men approached coming to the ring. One's dancing and one's hamming it up with the Glorious stuff. So it was very entertaining. So it caught her attention. And then the way Bobby Roode would beat him up after the match and the other guy saved it, like it got her interest. And being like, well, this guy's really cool. This guy's going to get his just due now, right? Like he's, they're going to fight.
So like having an actual heel and an actual face, and then someone to come to the aid of a baby face and be sort of the bigger baby face.
And
that was actually compelling storytelling.
And two people
like
with
hero versus villain.
Yeah, and two people with charisma. So
yeah,
it was compelling. Yeah. And then when it went off the air, like when they accepted the match, we'll fight right here, and they accepted the match, and then Bobby Roode went after Ono's leg, and they blah blah blah. Ono threw him out of the ring, and then they went off the air. She's like, "What happened? They just ended it like that? How come they didn't show the match?" Well, it's like, they just the match never happened. They were just teasing it was going to happen, and then the other guy kind of chickened out in such a way. It's like, oh, well, why didn't they like I knew they hooked her.
You're like, I'll see you here next week, right?
They hooked her. So I always talk about that, that wrestling fan who doesn't really know the inside workings and stuff like that. Well, here's a non-wrestling fan that was hooked by this storyline of Cassius Ohno returning, and she doesn't know any of the competitors in the ring.
Instantly. That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, that's amazing.
That
really is.
For somebody who would just joke around, like, how can you guys watch this crap, blah, blah, blah. I actually just sat there for the whole hour and, but was, really invested in that last 10 minutes, or even the last like 2 minutes, like really invested in it, not knowing what was going to happen. And she's a fan of soap operas. So like, I think the storyline just hooked her and just kind of spoke to her. And it's just, I don't think you get this. As simple as that was, I don't think you get that in any part of Monday Night Raw, because it's such an epically long night of TV. That no one, like, it's just exhausting to watch, and non-wrestling fans are not just going to sit through it. But here it was an hour. Like, hour might have been just enough to get her to sit through it.
I heard somebody today when I was riding around. I heard someone talking about the Festival of Friendship last week, and the stupid ratings talk came up again, and they were just like, well, I mean, everybody says they really like that segment, but it doesn't show in the ratings, and it's just like, do we have to have this conversation again? Ratings as they're measured today are stupid. They don't accurately measure anything. They don't take into account how people actually watch TV. And 3 hours is too long for a wrestling show anyway. It doesn't matter what you put there. It just doesn't. And it's been shown time and time again. And to your point, 3 hours is too long. Do you know the that was the remix, by the way, of the question.
Sure. Do you know the only place it does matter, by the way?
Where's that?
Ratings and stuff. It matters between the USA Network and the sponsors.
Oh, I know. No, I
and
know
that's it. It doesn't matter towards.
Right.
I mean, people can be turning off the segment because the segment sucks, and maybe ratings can kind of reflect that for live audiences, so you know what does and doesn't work. Maybe if you measure, like, if you take the metric of the ratings on the night within themselves and don't compare it week to week, and be like, all right, like 2.1 million people watched the show this week. But at this time, this quarter rating went down when this segment was on, and then it went back up again when it was over. I guess you can draw on a particular day within a bubble, like what does and doesn't work based on the ratings. But ratings being better one week than another week doesn't mean that show is better. Because how is the person going to know the show is better or not? They have to watch it first to know if it's better. They can't just turn it off before it begins because they know it's not better, and then not put their ratings into the system.
Right. You know what I mean? It all has to do with what else is on TV, so on and so forth. Wrestling being more I wouldn't say it's on a decline, but it's definitely on a firm plateau of it's not getting any bigger right now, which is unfortunate.
But it's also not dropping through the floor.
But it's not dropping through the floor at all.
And
you know what? USA isn't going to do anything with that third hour until USA has a show that could actually be competitive in that third hour. And
USA would probably put that show on at 11 o'clock.
What's that?
USA would probably put that show on at 11 o'clock and not give WWE that leeway to go overtime at that point. Like, they would still keep wrestling at 3 hours.
That's what they would do. Yeah, that's what they would do at first. And then if somehow that show just became a monster, then maybe they'd
put it on Wednesday or Thursday or after SmackDown.
Fair
because once you're committed to that time slot, it's going to take a hell of a lot. And
that's true.
It's not another show's popularity. It's whatever show's on TV's tanking it.
Sure.
Because that show can be popular on any night of the week if it's succeeding. Instead of moving it to Monday night and cutting an hour off Raw, just leave it where it is, where it's being popular already.
But yeah, you're right. Yeah, they would just cut off the extra time. That makes sense.
But again,
if they would cut off the extra time,
if that super mega show is already popular somewhere, someday, sometime, like instead of cutting Raw down an hour just to put it on that same day, just leave it where it is. It's working. Like that's the CBS flawed logic that I never understood when I was in broadcasting school. Was that like CBS?
Oh, them moving stuff around all the time.
Oh, just moving stuff around all the time. It's like, well, this show's is pretty good on Monday, but we're gonna move it to Thursday as a lead-in for CSI. Why don't you just leave it on Monday where it's working? Because then you move it and it's not a good lead-in and only has like 2 seasons and it's done. Like, it had a great first season.
What's funny is that same philosophy moved. Some of the same execs moved to CW when CW, CBS and UPN turned WB or into,
WB and UPN became CW.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, there you go. which CBS is somehow involved in
And
that.
Fox as well.
So,
Oh no,
anyway.
I'm sorry. Fox is my network TV. Never mind.
Correct. But it's funny because they did the same thing for a while, and then shows started succeeding even when they would move them to die.
There were
Like
shows.
they moved Supernatural and Smallville around all over the place, and somehow they created a fan base that became more rabid as the show got moved around, as opposed to, they tried to, like in season 7 of Supernatural, they moved it to Friday nights, thinking, well, the show's sort of, we're kind of getting to the end of what the major arc is of the show, and so let's move it somewhere where it can just sort of, fade out or whatever. And it did better than it had ever done, and yeah. And they're like,
there was that.
They kept renewing it. So
There was that period after they merged. Maybe it was like a 2-year period where the UPN and WB shows were trying to find their place, overlapping with each other, because UPN was more urban, and like CW was more like,
teen drama.
Yeah, teen drama-ish, but
young
like
adult
white
drama
collar,
stuff.
like, it's basically like your white. You couldn't get any whiter for a TV network, basically. Like they contrasted so much in styles that when you merged them together, you couldn't just go like Girlfriends, Moesha, Veronica Mars. You would have to rip it apart and be like, all right, well, Reba, What I Like About You, Veronica Mars on this day, and then like Girlfriends and Moesha and whatever else on like another day. Everybody Hates Chris and all that. I feel like that merger killed a lot of really good TV shows on both channels, just because of how poorly they managed them. And I also think that it was just like, well, now we're just trying to create our own identity. So it's like, all right, we're not renewing all these shows. Well, you had so many good shows that were still had, like Veronica Mars was the biggest, like, the show I liked the most that got canceled at that time. I think Everybody Hates Chris succeeded for a while. That might not even been a UPN show.
Did you ever see the Veronica Mars movie, by the way?
I did not. No. There's a finality about that I don't want to watch.
Fair enough.
You know what I mean?
Fair
It's
enough.
like I don't want to watch the last.
Oh yeah,
episode.
you've told me that. You've told me
Yeah.
that before. That
Yeah.
You don't like watching the last show of a lot of things. So.
Yeah, if it's the last show and then it gets canceled, like the episode, and I get canceled, I'm like, all right, I'm better with that than it's like here's the series finale. It's like, oh,
Here's it.
Here's it, and I don't want to watch it after that. But there were so many good shows in that merger on both sides of the spectrum for both channels that just all got crushed because of that. I mean, even you had your teen drama, white CW, and then UPN. So many. I'm just so interested now to dive into Wikipedia and be like, all right, what shows were on at that time? I just want to read the history of that merger now. Being the broadcast major I am. You know what I'm not really interested in, though, Duke?
What's that?
205 Live.
I knew you were going to say that.
Well, I mean, we just talked about NXT. It's really no surprise that 205 Live comes next, but
Sure.
I can't. I can't get into it. I can't. There are guys who I kind of like.
I thought I was getting there, and then I wouldn't say I soured on it, but I kind of lost interest as well.
Name anybody on this roster that I say that I want to see. And I mean, even with Gallagher and Neville, the answer is like, no, I don't. I mean, like, best case scenario, like, I do want to see Gallagher do his shtick. But, if 205 Live didn't exist and Gallagher was in the mix with like Tony Nese and Neville and Brian Kendrick, Akira Tozawa on Raw, like, I'd be fine with that. I don't like the inclusivity of the Cruiserweight division inserting itself into Raw, just like the Pete Dunne stuff on NXT. I feel like it's taking away from Raw. Like, there are other things they can do. They lose momentum. I've said this time and time again. But like, then there are guys like Mustafa Ali and Daivari and Noam Dar and like, as big as a Cedric Alexander guy as I was coming out of Ring of Honor and the Cruiserweight Classic match with Ibushi. Like, I just, it's everything about it just doesn't work. It's what's the worst WWE produced TV show you think you've ever seen in your life that had original matches? Is it Main Event?
Yeah, probably. Yeah.
It's well, I guess it's like kind of really fitting. It's well, no, Superstars is the show that got canceled, right, for this.
Yeah, I think so.
It's that show. It's that show that like I don't feel like I'm missing anything because if anything happens, then it's going to be replayed or start on Raw. The inner workings of it is going to start on Raw, and it's going to conclude on a pay-per-view.
Yeah, the actual show that's supposed to be for these guys is kind of like the. That's a really good comparison. It is very much like Superstars, where they can mention that something happened, maybe even show you a replay of something happening, but in the grand scheme of things,
Yeah.
in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't really even matter.
I don't even remember when the last time Raw or SmackDown ever even brought up Superstars or Main Event. Last week on Main Event, this happened. Not really.
They haven't really since the split. But,
no, I don't think they have before the split either. Because anything that would start as an angle on Superstars or Main Event would be get concluded on Superstars or Main Event like the next week, like Tyler Breeze and Curtis Axel or something. Something would happen, and then the next week
that's a good point.
They'd rectify it, and you'd never see them on mainstream TV. It's just if you didn't watch Main Event and Superstars, you'd think they just burying these guys by not putting them on TV. Well, no, there's other programs, you just don't watch them. Stuff like that.
Maybe they'll pull it out, but I don't know. But hopefully the title match will be good.
Something needs to happen, and I don't think it's the inclusion of I just don't see myself like Austin Aries comes into the mix. Okay, that's cool. Maybe you graduate somebody from NXT and then they go into this division. Okay, that's cool as well. But when it's in that arena that tapes for SmackDown, like these guys have to be wrestling at Full Sail. This has to be taping after NXT. You know what I mean? You have to have that Full Sail crowd with these type of guys because the atmosphere means everything. You put them in an arena, and these fans have already seen Cena and Orton and the like, and now they're watching Tony Nese and Jack Gallagher. Like it's it's night and day difference. So you have to have like that's the only thing I feel like that can save this right now is we have to put this in a smaller arena setting like NXT, and there you go. That's how Angry Larry saves
which is kind of what we had said a couple of weeks ago that's probably how it should have stayed for a while at least.
And I think that the argument back then was like it was something new and unannounced and people weren't planning to stay after SmackDown was taped to watch this stuff, so that's why the crowd participation was bad and give it a while. I think we gave it enough of a while, and why I don't watch the show to see how the crowd reacts. I also am not invested enough in the show to see how it reacts. So, by the way, hey, listen, could I read these excerpts from the Tom Phillips text messages?
Excerpts, really?
Excerpts.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is for you. I'm the Duke. He's the Larry. Thank you for tuning in this week. I will be more attentive and on point next week. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye. Larry, you got anything?
I would love to read this stuff, but you're not going to let me, so whatever.